Oh my gosh, dude. That's some crazy dude. Welcome back to Impact 2023, my first show. I used to just do shows all the time and I just was trying to keep up with myself and do one every single month. And then I had this whole moment of saying, you know what, I'm only gonna do it when it's right. When it's so right and it's so good. And here I am in Austin, Texas with right and good. Ekram Alan, founder and CEO of a company called MindPortal. Very excited to unearth what you have going on. And, over the years, we've met some incredible people, luminaries, thought leaders, inventors, genius. And it's always that epoch moment where you know like something is so right about a story or about a technology or about a way that the world is going to change. And that's why I created the Impact Show, the Impact Conference Series, and we are well over 3 million unique views on our YouTube channel. Very excited and humbled with the type of growth that we've been experiencing, but also the feedback coming in from entrepreneurs and people that are starting up their own businesses and their own thought leadership, inspired by the people that I've interviewed over my life and career. We've done Las Vegas, we've done Park City, and now we're going to do my hometown of Orange County, California. The beautiful crystal blue waters of Newport Beach, California will be the site of Impact 23, where you'll be with over 200 CEOs, leaders, and senior executives talking about the latest advancements in all things internet marketing, artificial intelligence, meet some of the most progressive startups, as well as venture capitalists. This 3-day fully immersive event will feature some of the greatest sights of Newport Beach, including a 4-hour cruise on that crystal blue ocean to Emerald Bay. I look forward to welcoming you and having a moment in your life that you will never forget. So Ekram, you and I have got to know each other, really excited about this. Can you tell me a little bit about your background as if I don't know you, so my audience can get to know you, where you were born and raised, and how you started this company with your partner, Jack?
Yes, Sinan, great to see you, man. Thanks for having me on the show. So, where do you want to start? Childhood? Or...
I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah. What hospital were you born?
So the truth of it, Sinan, is I grew up from an immigrant family in pretty much a working class background. We grew up in a council estate. My dad worked in a factory. My mum kind of was assisting at the time, administration. And it was kind of a rough neighborhood. And really, we were sheltered from going out a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So I read a lot of different books. Mm-hmm. And some of the books I read were around people that really pioneered things. Walt Disney, Michael Jackson. Later on, I read Steve Jobs. Like these, as strange as it sounds, as weird as it sounds, these books were kind of my friends in some senses. They were the network I had at that time. Mm. And so it instilled a sense where I loved the fact that they pioneered things, they created things, they advanced humanity in their respective fields, whether it's music or technology or whatever it is. And I was just inspired by that. And then there was a trick that happened, Sinan. Honestly, this is the big lie, actually. Okay. That I think a lot of people are fed, and it could be controversial because I'm not going to make it, throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think there could be some good, but you're taught that if you do well at school, mm-hmm. that is the way you make an impact, right? And so I wouldn't say I'm a particularly smart guy, Sinan, but I cared so much about trying to make an impact that I just threw myself into education. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting some of the best grades in the entire country. I was written up in the press. I think for one of the exams you take just before going to university, I did 14 exams. I got 100% in 11 of them. And in the remaining 3, I got 95%, something like that. And that's not because I'm smart. I'm not saying that I'm smart. I actually think it was a sign of some sort of stupidity, actually, and I'll get to that later. But it was because I cared so much about making an impact. And then I ended up going to med school, and that was with the encouragement of my teachers, my parents. What do I know? I was a teenager, I didn't know anything. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going into university, medical school, thinking, okay, if I do this, maybe this is the way I'll make an impact. And that's where the deception started wearing off, you know?
Right.
Right? So you're in the school environment, you're told this is the way to make an impact. And I'll tell you why I think, weirdly, my proudest moment was dropping out. Everyone's thinking, oh, you did well in the exams, that you're smart. I actually think that wasn't smart. What was smart was dropping out. And I'll tell you why. The analogy I use is, if you have a dog jumping through hoops, you could say the dog is smart. But then you also think, why is it jumping through hoops without even thinking about it? Right. I was that dog doing that. And when I started realizing this is going to be a good job. This is going to get me a job that I can make a difference in a certain degree, but it's not advancing humanity and it's not doing a big impact. So I had a fork in the road. Right. Carry on this route from a poor background, you know, going to university, going to medical school. It's a big deal. You know, you have if you're training to be a doctor and you go on Tinder and you tell girls that, they all want to meet you.
That optimizes?
That, you know, that
gets you more clicks, doctor? Okay.
So that's what you have as one route.
Right.
And then I had the other route, which is, no, I actually follow what I think. I don't know how I'm going to make an impact. I don't know what's going to happen here. But this is the other route. And here I've got approval, support, family, all of this stuff.
Right.
Rooting for this. Here's nothing. It's an abyss.
Right.
And one of the things that's a double-edged sword and a bit crazy about my mind is, if I think something is true, I have to do it. And even if everyone's saying not to, I have to. And the converse is true as well. If I don't think it's right, I won't do it. And so I left. I dropped out of university. And, you know, growing up from an immigrant family, this is just, you know, bringing something in. There's a lot of generational trauma. Right. Yeah, you know, my grandma was orphaned when she was a teenager. Both of my parents have forms of trauma. There's so much trauma there in that family. So when I left, with the trauma that's embroiling in my family, I had to create some distance, figure out my own mind, you know, what's going on here. And so I did. I dropped out. At the time I was on welfare. Jack and I were friends in med school. We kind of dropped out together, you know. And what ended up happening is, whilst being on welfare and also trying to get a minimum wage job, we optimized for space. You know, I could get a job, but if you're working all the time the job, you can't think, what is the way to make an impact? And so during that period of space that we created, doing a minimum wage job a few times, living in the worst possible conditions so that we could just free the space to think, what's the way to make an impact? And I'll stop there, because the next chapter is, okay, now you've got this space that you've managed to carve out. What happened during that period of space?
There's a couple things I want to draw on. So to our audience, I just want to bring back literacy. So you said you discovered a lot by reading these books when you were super young because you were sheltered. You were in a controlled environment where you couldn't get out. There's actually a movie called Matilda. And my daughter, who's 10 years old, it's one of our favorite movies. It's a classic. And she was in a very different environment, but she couldn't go out. She couldn't even go to school. Yeah. So the way that she discovered life and to really create and imagine was through reading. One of our partners at the IMA is Literacy Project. And reading is such an essential ingredient to your life journey, and Ekram is a living example of that. Now, different to you, I actually did finish college, and then I ended up doing my master's degree. Although some of my best friends and some of the most successful people I know, they went into a different direction right at that apex moment of continuing and getting their degree, which is, yes, jumping through hoops. I get that. But there's also the opposite, which is like you may discover a fork in the road and you may see something and you need to pivot and you need to go on another journey, even though that hoop is right there. And that's how society is breeding you to be successful or go on a journey. Tell me the struggle that you went through to discovering, I'm not going to continue and go through that next loop, but I'm going to actually veer right. I'm not going to continue and get my med school. I'm going to go and become an entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us what led you into what you're doing now.
Absolutely. You know, these are great points, and really, you know, when the adage, which is, you know, the people you keep around you, you are the average of those people. When you're in an environment where people are potentially pushing a certain dogmatism there, and then you have books. I mean, you could be friends with Alexander the Great by reading his biography, right? You can be around the experiences he had. So it definitely, you know, speaks to what you're talking about, which it opens up things. But the really strange thing, Sinan, is it's a paradox, which is when you have a fork in the road, it's actually really easy. Like when you break it down, it's really easy to actually just go with what you want.
Right.
But the irony is what makes it hard is your own mind can make it hard. And you hear this all the time, right? A founder will say, fundraising is so hard. And then you could also say, well, you're kind of just talking to different people. Most of them are quite nice, investors. Some of them resonate, some of them don't. Is that hard? Is that easy? You know, it's subjective, right? So the real challenge actually is when you allow what others are saying to cloud your own thinking. That's the real challenge, to make that space.
Right.
Especially when you are young and you have supposed authorities telling you this as well. And so this is something, you know, if young people are watching this, I think young people are brilliant. You know, they should actually listen to themselves in some sense.
I would say, starting my enterprise, you know, the first 12 years of this 30-year career journey was a struggle. I had to claw my way through. It was not easy. I had to fail so many more times. And there has to be something on the inside to keep you driving. Because when you have that much rejection or that many doors closing on you at the same time, it's very tough to pick yourself up and to go. And a lot of people get shut out quick. I would say most of the world just gives up eventually on something. And it's important, as Ekram's saying, to look past that and give yourself a second chance, a third chance. Sometimes you're going to go 10 times on the same thing, and eventually that door will open, or you look at it a different way. Now, given that context, tell me a little bit of how this led you to developing MindPortal and what that journey was.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the point I left, I created space deliberately. I needed space to just figure out, I want to serve humanity. I want to make an impact. How? And at the time I was reading Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, which talks about exponential technologies and how the future is just going to be radically different to what it is today. At the time, and this is kind of talking about, you know, I talked about being on Tinder in med school and so on and so forth. Also having a bit of a chaotic mind, which I can channel now into creative and innovative thinking. But it led to a lot of impulsive behaviors. And I bring back now, you know, reversing back into med school, there was a situation where I met a girl on Tinder, and we ended up experimenting with substances, right? Okay, I'll just say that. Sinan, I trust you. I'm putting that. You know,
people experiment all the time.
We're all friends here, right? So I was in an impulsive, crazy thing, and a lot of the things we were experimenting with are just recreational.
Okay.
But amongst that litany was psychedelics.
Right.
And when I had psychedelics, even though it was a setting of this is recreational, it was insane what was happening. And we were in a strange mindset at the time. Barely knew this girl, actually.
Right.
And we were kind of just mucking about. But things were coming up that were quite profound.
Right.
And after that, so since then, I've not done recreationally substances.
Right.
And psychedelics are the only thing I don't even drink. Right?
Okay, got it.
But psychedelics, something happened during that session where I was like, this is not a drug.
Right.
This is something else.
Okay. Did it unlock something in your
It
brain?
unlocked something, but it wasn't the right setting to really go deeper.
Right.
Because of course it was a silly.
You were with your friend.
Yeah, my friend, right? So it was a weird setting. So I revisited psychedelics, and after dropping out, I did start revisiting psychedelics again, and this time not in a chaotic setting, in a calmer setting, in an exploratory setting, and trying to find out what is the message here? What is psychedelics trying to show me? People say, you know, it's the psychedelics showing you, or it's your own inner self coming up. It unlocks parts of your mind that have been repressed. There's all different manner of theories about that, and that's a whole separate show we could do on that.
Yeah.
But what started coming up was, and this speaks to the point you made, which is something keeps you going. What's really weird about that is it's a bit like if you're breathing now, right? And if someone said to you, here's a huge amount of resistance to breathing. Like, we don't want you to breathe. We think you're an idiot. Don't breathe. Would you stop breathing? You wouldn't.
Probably not.
Yeah, right? You can't stop breathing. And if everyone was like, you're amazing, this is great, would you stop breathing? You wouldn't. No. Because this mission is like breathing. And what's the underlying current for me is my fear isn't actually, my biggest fear rather, isn't dying. Of course I don't want to die, I want to live forever, immortality. But one thing that is my biggest fear is actually humanity itself. The love of humanity, which is that we've come so far as a species. Our ancestors didn't, excuse my French, but our ancestors didn't fight for their lives in the savannah for us to come to where we are now and fuck things up. And we're so close. We're so close to being multiplanetary, which your friend Elon is doing.
Sure.
Right? We're so close to having breakthroughs that overcome diseases that would kill us. We're so close. And my biggest fear is that we're so close and we don't make it.
Right.
And that, to me, I want to serve the advancement of humanity. It's a mission that I live for. It's a mission I die for. And that's really...
And connect that tissue now to the platform. How did you come up with MindPortal when you were on psychedelics? Would you just wake up one day and you said, I dreamt it, I saw it?
Yes.
What was the psychedelic you were on, and how did MindPortal get born?
Great question, Sinan. So it's all coming together now. If you look at the way technology is going, artificial intelligence is exponentially improving, and humanity has a future. Okay, in scenario one, and this will inevitably happen, unless there's some sort of existential crisis we don't know about, artificial intelligence will start to recursively improve and then far surpass humanity's capabilities. It's already doing that in so many domains. The only reason one would argue with that is less to do about what's happening and more to do with how the brain itself works, which is humans have evolved to not compute exponential change. So we can't even understand what's happening in an intuitive sense. Now, if that happens, humans can be left behind and AI will expand in its intelligence. And in essence, we're confined to the human experience that we have. That's one scenario. And it's not the worst.
Right.
But you could also have a future where AI becomes super intelligent and is not necessarily benevolent towards humans. And I'm not saying that's a situation where it's malicious towards us. It's just we don't align with AI's goals. So we're discarded as a species. Another one is that it's benevolent and we're like pets to AI. There's a whole bunch of scenarios with AI running away. That's route one, an unknown future where AI recursively improves. The other scenario is where humans join the game itself, where we actually connect with AI. AI doesn't run away leaving us behind, but we go along for the journey.
It's embedded with us.
Exactly. And we go along with the journey. And in this future, we stay competitive. And when I say competitive, I don't say it in an antagonistic way. I mean in the sense of you have arms races in evolution. You have a predator and a prey, and both improve in a certain way because the prey is trying to run away, the predator gets faster, the prey gets faster, the predator gets faster. As intelligence in AI improves, and if we stay alongside it, we'll improve. And what's happening weirdly in the world today is so much funding is going into improving AI, which it should. I love AI, and I think it should improve. I want it to exponentially improve. But there's not a lot of funding, by comparison, going into keeping the human side level with AI, aka technologies to integrate us with AI better. Hybridization technologies, neural implant technologies. Just imagine the funding in AI that's actually helping
but
AI.
But you need a node to connect the AI to.
Exactly.
So there's the human experience running in parallel.
Exactly. So if you've got humans on the one side, we're barely evolving. AI that is evolving quickly. And there's so much funding going into AI, but barely any funding to connect us to AI so we keep up. I think more should be done on that left wing, the one that I was showing here, the human side.
Right.
And so that's really why MindPortal was born. We want to build technologies that help the human mind more intimately communicate and interact with AI.
Right.
So that eventually in the future, we can stay competitive with AI, we join with AI, and we go into the next evolution of humanity. And that's...
What moment triggered MindPortal? Where were you? How did you come up with it? Was it a conversation you had with Jack? Can you tell me that inflection point?
Yes. So I was on psychedelics. So Jack and I actually were living together, and it was a rundown flat, really rundown. Like it was the cheapest thing we could possibly get.
So basically, what I've learned so far in this story is you could drop out of school, you could hang out on Tinder and do drugs, and get funding from Y Combinator.
Right.
Unbelievable. Okay. I mean, okay, sorry.
But they don't know about any of this stuff.
They don't know about it. Okay. Well,
well
now they know about it.
Well, now they do.
And we love Y Combinator, don't get me wrong, but this is going to be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so tell me. You call Jack and then...
Yes, so I'm on psychedelics and I'm seeing these visions. And I'm seeing we need to launch something that catalyzes the hybridization of humans with AI and really fuels that side of the equation. You've got AI that's expanding, great. But let's expand the hybridization arm of things. And things like that are happening, Neuralink and other companies. But in comparison to what's being put into AI advancement, it's tiny.
Right.
So if you think about, there's something which is awakening the tigers, awakening others, which is if we can demonstrate a technology that is profitable, that people use, and it's a neural interface, suddenly others will want to do it too.
Right.
And that's really what MindPortal is trying to do. It's trying to create something that catalyzes even more people joining. I get asked all the time, are you competitors with Neuralink? Are you competitors with this BCI company? And they're looking at it at a certain level of abstraction, which is, in the market. But the meta level of abstraction, which is, no, we want humanity to get towards a future, then actually we want more players in the field.
Exactly.
If there's a billion BCI companies started tomorrow, I'm secretly celebrating because it means humanity's going.
Drive it forward.
Exactly. And so we want to do that. We want to have a company that produces something like that and catalyze it.
How did you prototype your hardware and what differentiates you from others in the space?
Yes, so starting with that vision, so this is where, going back to your past question actually, which is I was on psychedelics, I was seeing this vision, Jack was living with me. I think there was mold in his room, so he was packing his car to try and go stay with his girlfriend for a bit. I mean, the whole room was with black mold. So as he was packing his car, I was like, dude, and just verbal diarrhea, a bit like what I'm doing now, right? Just, and he's packing his car, and he's like, this is insane. We need it. And we had subsequent conversations about it and launched MindPortal.
Just like that?
Just like that. You can't not launch MindPortal.
Okay.
Or a company like that. But the thing that makes it really different is we thought about what is the user experience we want. We thought about it from what do we want this to actually do, and then work backwards to put technology into the right places so it fulfills it. So we didn't think this technology, let's see how we commercialize it. We're actually technology agnostic.
Right.
We thought of it more, what is the experience we want people to have? And we still think that way today. In some senses, being a dropout helps that. Because if we did a PhD in, say, EEG technology, we'll probably be trying to get EEG technology to be commercialized. We're not. We're technology agnostic. And so really what we've got now is a very different type of technology, and multiple different levels of abstraction. The hardware is different. It's both electrical and optical technology that we're hybridizing together. We're building completely different and novel AI models. We're also, what we're trying to actually detect in the brain is different. And what really guides those conversations, and they're always evolving, is what is the experience we want a human to be able to have. This is a human company.
Before we unpack the human experience, let's back to the hardware. When people hear about MindPortal, sophisticated people, technical people, business people, anybody, they're all wondering, how do you read someone's mind? How does a physical node go through the skin and detect what I'm thinking? How does that happen?
Yeah, great question. So when we think, when we have any brain activity, there's stuff happening in the brain. And you could consider it electrical activity. You could also, if you shine a certain pulse of light in, of the right wavelength, and you get the scattering of whenever light hits a surface, it scatters, and you get that detected, it gives you an indication of what's going on in the brain. And so what our technology is really simply sources that are either pulsing light in and detectors that are picking up what's happening in the brain. And then you have computational models that are working out, oh, look at the way this was absorbed, look at the way this was scattered. If it's scattered or absorbed in this way, there must be brain activity happening here and here and here. And then if you can match what's happening in terms of that brain activity to a thought that you've had or an intention that you've had, then in a sense you're able to work out, okay, this scattering pattern that we've detected must be this person thinking this. So can you see how you can get to a point where you can kind of start to read people's...
But everyone's brains are different. And sizes and the impulses, the cosmetic buildup of our cells, how are you able to just put it on your head and then my head, and it still is able to detect thought and actually apply it into a game or into a selection?
This is currently an area that's a big area for us in research. And we're still doing it now. Like, so when we came out and saw you last in December, that system we hadn't even generalized it.
Right.
But we tried it on some of your friends and different people, and it happened to work.
Right.
So that's actually something...
We tried it on Palmer Luckey, and it worked. And that was good. And then like 40 of my other friends.
Yeah, we did.
Kevin Dunlap, who helped invest in Ring Technology that he sold to Amazon. And he also... had a great experience on it.
Yeah.
But you're able to take it from Palmer's head and put it on Kevin's head, and it worked both times.
That was actually something we hadn't reached a point in our development to do.
Right.
So we're still in the process of generalizing it.
I mean, there's no training involved. You just put it on, and it works for the next person.
So the ideal that we're moving towards is we would want there to be minimal training. Mm-hmm. If I were to say, there probably will be some training you need to do.
Like most. I mean, VR headsets and other nodes, you have to train. iRetina, things like that.
Exactly.
Right.
But we want to really reduce the training time and make it fun.
Right.
So you're able to get into the system very quickly. Mm-hmm. And our development roadmap, because we're not productizing for a year or two now, is getting our system to work for more and more people.
Sure.
And that's part of what we're doing.
So I'm very excited. I know I'm going to be doing the demo in a few minutes, but tell me a little bit about some applications, because I would think immediately disabled individuals would be one. Yeah. Tell me your thoughts on where you see this going into market.
Yeah, no, this is really great, because en route to this long-term vision, which is humans are increasingly more connected to AI, we really think real-world applications and solving real-world problems is huge. And so what you've mentioned is huge. I believe the World Health Organization, they've estimated around 1 billion people, 15% of the human population, an estimate, has some sort of physical impairment.
Right.
And of that 15%, a significant portion are likely to find typical inputs such as keyboard or a mouse or a controller or a touch screen really difficult or impossible to use. And if you think how often we use technology to communicate, to learn, to create, and if you're not even part of that conversation because the interface is something you can't use, it's not only terrible for the individual, but as a society, there's people with incredible gifts that they could be bringing to the table that are limited because of this interface.
Absolutely.
So as a first real-world application, one of the areas we're looking at is we want this to be used to help people who have difficulties, like you talk about people with disabilities, people with Parkinson's, people with motor skill issues, dexterity issues. They could use this to get increased ability to communicate with technology.
Right.
There's other applications where you can imagine with productivity.
Right.
Eventually when the technology gets good enough, you can do things far more quickly with your thoughts. It's very strange.
Could you Bluetooth into personalized computing, laptop or my phone?
Yes, yeah. We're actually building our system to work with existing devices now. Phones, laptops, computers, virtual and augmented reality headsets. So it's very versatile.
Right. I mean, the keyboard and the mouse, it's amazing that it still exists.
Yes.
You're basically the mouse killer.
You could put it that way, Sinan.
There are going to be some pissed off people
I love mice, but
all those keyboards, what are we going to do without them?
It's true, but this is what's so strange, which is we have exponentially improved our technologies where, recently ChatGPT, right? It's like almost semi-sentient. It can answer so many of your questions. So you can imagine this is the tip of the iceberg of what's to come.
Right.
If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, right? Winter is coming. And then what you have is, okay, here's a super intelligence that can help you in some way, but you are constrained by how quickly you can type towards it.
Right.
As opposed to simply think.
Right.
It understands your thoughts and you have a faster form of communication. We haven't upgraded the way we interface with our technology, even though technology is vastly improving. But the way we interface with our technology is the bottleneck to how much value we as a civilization can actually extract from our technology.
Right. I loved how you compared humanity to AI, and it's sort of like an arms race and making sure that there is some level playing field. And I think in November of 2022, when OpenAI put out ChatGPT, it really opened the eyes to the mainstream consumer of what AI was and what it can do. Because a lot of people in business and tech have known what AI is. It's taking large sums of data and actually doing predictive analytics on whatever industry it's in, but to actually put it into a consumer's hand and for consumers to actually now use it on a day-to-day basis is fascinating. And I think that's opening up a whole new industry in and of itself that's going to give companies like MindPortal a lot of sort of balance, because you want to get AI and humanity, and you're putting MindPortal into the humanity side of the AI, which is ChatGPT, let's say, and rising together.
Exactly.
And I think the timing of your business is very strong. As we wrap up this interview, what I also like to do is understand what some of the struggles were. I mean, taking this business and landing millions of dollars in funding, and you've got some rock star investors on here.
Literally,
can you
rock stars,
tell us about some of your investors that are already public, but I think that's super interesting. But also tell me about the journey of getting to where you're at and how you overcame the impossible to actually get funding.
Yes, so really the journey was that the love of humanity driving it, and the philosophy, which is we'll take this out, we'll share it, and if people resonate with it, great, and if they don't, that's great too. Like people, in a huge population, there's going to be a percentage of people that do resonate, and there might be loads that don't. And really, some of the, you could say a challenge, but at the time it didn't really feel like one, is going out and it's considered crazy. It's considered out there. And then you're explaining it. And across, one of the first investors to ever invest in us was also one of Palmer's first investors in Oculus. We had a coffee with them, and they actually wrote our first check, and they understood it. And so it's really just expressing what we see is coming, what we think is important, and finding those who align with it. And those who don't, they've got their own interests too. So it's
thousands of entrepreneurs that watch this show, and these are people that have startups of their own. I mean, what's the advice you give? Because I'm sure the same company that supported you and Palmer and whoever else, there was some magic that they saw there. But a lot of people get rejected. What is the difference? What does it take to get your idea seriously considered and funded?
So I would say that the key element is to not be concerned with rejection. Do not see rejection as this fatal thing, actually. Consider it more in a globalized sense, which is you have a population of billions of people, and of that population, even if 99, I mean, whoever watches this, 99% might think I'm a lunatic,
I don't think so. 98%.
98%, right? But it doesn't matter, right?
Okay.
If you authentically express something, the way to see finding people who align with it is do not try to sell. Don't try to sell. Right. Sell is about persuading and about trying to convince someone. Instead, authentically express what you're doing, what you care about, and you will find people that already resonate. The honest experience I've had with team members who've joined us, and we've got people from Cambridge, Oxford, Google, DeepMind. We've got an exclusive research collaboration with someone who's got Stanford and Harvard guys, one of the top neuroscientists in the world. He leads a lab. He's got 28,000 citations, which in academia, the more citations you have, the more credible you are. 28,000 is one of the most cited guys in the world. All of those things came about not by selling to those guys, but just getting in front and saying, this is something we care about. We're serving this. Do you resonate? If they don't, oftentimes they're
So
wonderful
that's great
people.
advice for those watching is thought leadership, education, don't sell. As soon as you start selling, the walls go up on whoever's on the other end that you're trying to build a relationship with. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
In my career, I started selling, and that's all I did. And I got rejected most of the time. Now I educate, and it's the complete opposite. So I totally agree with you, and it's just a numbers game eventually, and people will gravitate more to the storytelling. And one of the things my father told me very young was to go to Toastmasters, which jokingly I thought was a beer drinking club, but it was really about public speaking.
Yeah.
And if you can communicate, whether you're on camera or you're in an audience or you're one-on-one with an investor or whoever it may be, communication is a big part of this. And that's something that I always recommend to our audiences to get your communication skills strong and don't sell, don't persuade, but definitely do the education side of what you do. So that's really good. My last question would really be around your darkest moment when you're trying to make this real. This is real now. This is getting out on my show. This is going to be on my stage at Impact. This is going to be the next greatest thing. When everything is against you and it's dark outside and you feel like you have failed, what is it that keeps you going to overcome that thought, if it even happens? How do you push yourself over that edge? Because we started this conversation on this, and I feel like a lot of people, entrepreneurs, get shut out quick and they give up quick. What sort of advice and drawing to your own experience do you have?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in a way that's going to sound probably quite strange.
Nothing after this interview sounds strange, dude.
So I think I have to explain the base of it to then make the final point, but I think it's worth doing that, which is sometimes I find for myself, and maybe people can resonate with this, is you can be doing the same external action, but be coming from two very different places. One is you're coming from a place of, I need to prove myself. Mm-hmm. And one is you're coming from a place of, this is for love. And I still now need to make sure I'm doing it from a place of love. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the other place, I think for me, so I'll just kind of be open. Like, I have trauma from childhood. Mm-hmm. I was in the last couple of years given a diagnosis of complex PTSD from childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have undiagnosed traumas to various degrees. Yeah. I think definitely founders. Sure. I think the way to cope with chaos, we come from chaos. Right. So we actually feel at ease in the chaos. So there's trauma. And the way that when you grow up with trauma and you feel that you never received love, you never received the things you needed as a child, you can sometimes flit into a place where an investor saying no hurts you more than it should because you don't feel good enough. Right. You feel it's a wound that hasn't been healed from the past. It's nothing to do with the investor. Yeah. I mean, they might not invest in you because their hands are full. It's nothing to do with you. Right. But you create that sense of pain in the mind, but it's not coming from what's happening in the present day. Right. It's coming from childhood. Right. So a big piece of advice I would say is healing, work on your inner healing, and realize almost self-awareness when this is, nothing's fatal. Even if MindPortal were to crash, right? The situation we're in now versus, say, what's happening in Ukraine, a company crashing, what is that? You launch another one. There's nothing. It's nothing. Right. But the pain you feel is actually less about what's happening in the real world and more about, I'm not good enough, I'm worthless. Right. And it comes from an evolutionary need children have, which is the love and approval of their family. Right. And if you don't get that, even as an adult, you feel there's times you're not getting that, it can cause unnecessary pain. So try and shift from that pain and trauma, easier said than done, I flit in and out all the time, towards love. Yeah. This is coming from a place of love. Love for yourself, love for your fellow humans, love for humanity. Try and get to that. I'm not preaching this. What I'm actually saying is something I need to continually practice in myself. Yeah. And that's, the darkest times are times when it's gone into more trauma, then more, and I need to remind myself that this is... You mentioned PTSD, and I know that a lot of military veterans and such that have PTSD are actually being treated with psychedelics. Exactly. And back to psychedelics again, so I went to Mark Zuckerberg's house several years ago for an education little gathering of tech leaders, and Condoleezza Rice was there, and I was introduced to Joe Green, which was Mark's
really good friend growing up in Harvard, and Joe ran an organization called Forward, which was Mark and Bill Gates and a few others got
Amazing.
behind immigration reform. And Joe left Forward and started his own psychedelics group,
Amazing.
right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I introduced you guys. But it's amazing how many times I've said psychedelics in this interview, but it seems to be the cornerstone and the birthplace. It's a way that you've been able to mitigate your PTSD and some of the trauma you went through.
Yeah.
I'm seeing other friends, using it for other purposes.
Yeah.
I was just happened to be watching Silicon Valley last night, and there was a moment in the episode where one of the founders was on psychedelics in the middle of the desert thinking about his tech company, Pied Piper. And I'm like, what are the odds that I'm watching this the day before I'm interviewing you about psychedelics? But that being said, when you look at MindPortal and you talk about humanity, when you talk about MindPortal and you talk about artificial intelligence, and you talk about this race to keep up with one another, could you envision a world where there's not even a headband, but implanting MindPortal into our brain?
Yeah, I do think so. I think every technology that advances, eventually there's something else that will cannibalize it. So first of all, I want this future to happen. MindPortal could crash next year. I still want this to happen, irrespective of who does it. If MindPortal crashes, I'll dust myself off, launch something towards the same mission anyway. But it's the future that we're talking about. You can get to a certain point, which we have seen throughout the history of technology, and then something new will come and cannibalize it. And so today, what MindPortal is doing is considered cutting edge. In a decade, it will be old news. Something will cannibalize it. And I think we will find that it's invasive. We will start to become more intimately connected directly in the brain itself. I believe, if I have to put what technology it could be, I think nanotechnology coming in the next couple of decades could very intimately interact with our neurons. We'll have a full understanding of the brain, and we'll be able to connect with AI in a much more seamless manner. We will, in essence, be AI.
Right.
And to clarify, the arms race is not antagonistic. It's symbiotic.
It's symbiotic.
It's symbiotic.
Yeah.
We are AI.
Right.
We created AI.
Yeah.
So why would the thing we created to help us be something that's not good for us? We shouldn't have that.
Right.
Where it runs away and we don't know what it's doing. We've created this tool as a species. Let's have it, be something that's beneficial to us. And I do see a future where you have cyborgs who are connected to AI that were formerly biological humans, but they've connected. You've got some humans that chose to not connect with AI, and then you've got AIs as well.
Because if it's embedded in your brain, then the node is actually communicating with the computer. It's the human and the computer can actually interact in thought.
Yes, would we even use computers as we know it today, right?
You would have no reason for it.
No
It
reason.
would be telepathic communication.
Exactly, right.
Would you call this telepathic communication? I mean, would you call this an industry, telepathic?
Yes. Oh, I thought you meant, is this interview telepathic? Well,
probably.
Maybe, to some degree. But yes, we're doing telepathic communication.
Okay, so would you say, like, as a thought leader, that you would say you're a thought leader in telepathic communication? Is this what it's becoming? Like, artificial intelligence is AI.
Yeah.
This MindPortal is telepathic communication.
Yes, it's telepathic communication if you're communicating with one another and with other technologies with your mind.
Got it.
But it's also the beginning of adding what you could consider another layer to your mind itself. So we've got the biological brain. Once you have the technology in your brain itself, you can connect to AI. But weirdly, it's up to you how you choose to experience that AI. You could experience it as something other than you that you're communicating with, but you could also experience it how we experience our own brains, which is actually it's part of you. And it's one unified sense of subjective self. What subjective self will become is going to be really strange in the future when we can start uploading our consciousness and all of this.
The MindPortal, though, that I'm going to demo right now is selective. I select as opposed to communicate. So by selective, is that telepathic?
It's telepathic in so much as you're communicating your intention with your mind.
Got it.
And that intent is then now executed.
This is awesome.
And this is just something about what you're going to demo we've never shown this before.
And what am I demoing?
So what you're demoing is we're the first private company to have this, where we've basically pioneered a system where we're taking a brainwave that naturally occurs. It automatically occurs in your brain. It's a universal human signal. Mm-hmm. All humans have it. And it's called the expectancy wave. And the system will be using that wave as a command proxy to then allow you to select and move objects in virtual reality. So this is the first of its kind virtual reality game that's ever used this expectancy wave. It's completely new.
Wonderful.
And we're going to try it out with you.
I'm so excited.
And see what's going to happen.
That is epic. Well, thank you so much, Ekram, for this incredible interview. I have to say that all this, this moment, everything that I work for is stem off relationships. And you mentioned love. That's how I've operated since the day I was born, and I continue to do. The relationships of Rob Hutter and Greg Morrow, who are investors of yours. Just spent last week with them in their beautiful mountain called Powder Mountain. If you've ever been, it's toward Ogden. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I've never skied powder like this. We got 5 feet in a single day. A lot of our investors and friends were out there. It was mind-blowing. And they are the nicest, humblest people. They're having the Learn Summit here in Austin. That's why we're here. And I'm very excited to see you on stage tomorrow to present to all their portfolio companies and to the people attending. And I'd also like Jack to just come up here in the last shot as we wrap up. Jack, you want to come over here really quick? So Jack's not mic'd, but maybe you could just bend down right here. I always like to pay homage to the founders of a business like MindPortal. And thank you very much for coming down. I know you guys came from England and also have your business based here in California. So in the United States. So super stoked to round up this interview. And remember all the things that Ekram shared to the entrepreneurs watching this. And this is why we create impact. It's to make the impossible possible. This is all marching to the band that's playing all the way to Impact 23, which will happen in Lido Island, Newport Beach, California. My backyard. Should be really easy to plan as opposed to somewhere international or far from home. So I'm looking forward to having you all there. Everyone will be invited to that amazing event. And I bring you MindPortal. Thank you again, Ekram.
Sinan,
and Jack,
thank you.
Continued success with your journey. You've got our entire network behind you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Toot, toot, toot. Now the music plays.
So essentially you've now got brain data being streamed live from your brain through to the computer. So that part's complete, set up, working incredibly well. And now the second stage of setup is to load the virtual reality environment that you're actually going to be interacting with your thoughts. So I'm now going to press to activate the spheres.
Okay, I see the spheres.
And now, before you intend, think about which one you want to select and then intend to select it. Any of those balls you can
look at it and then intend.
So which one are you going for, do you think?
Yeah.
Here you go.
It's selected what I was thinking.
Okay, so now move it. There you go. So now you successfully moved it to a new location.
And each time you do that, new balls will appear.
Okay.
And try and make it connect 4.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it not only selects what I want it to select, but then I tell it which way to move, and then it moves it.
Yeah.
That's surreal.
And obviously,
I mean, the one we did before was of the brain, where it selected it. That was almost like just an action. This is more of like my thought, and then moving it as well, which is like another action that we didn't do the first time. I mean, that was. Dude, this is so cool, because it just did the 4 blue, and I'm doing nothing but thinking about it and moving it. Wow. Okay. I get it. It works. Bravo. That's cool.
Awesome. We're doing one last one. Okay. That's it.
We're able to select just based on thought, and then move, and then actually play a game. That's pretty awesome. No joystick, no keyboard. There you go. I present to you MindPortal.